Okay, guys, we are starting our narrative unit, and so we are going to be working on writing a narrative essay. So today I'm going to go through just the basics of narration and picking our topic for that narrative essay. Okay, so what is a narrative? It is essentially just a story. It has characters, it has setting, it's got plot. In order to be a good narrative, it does need to have certain components and follow certain guidelines, and that's what we're going to go over here today. So the narrative, we're telling a story. It's something that we get a little bit more space to be creative than in other certain types of writing. So let's talk about character. Okay, a personal narrative is a work of nonfiction, which means that it should be a true story and it's not made up. It should be based in your experiences. The main character should be you, and it should be written in the first person. That means you are telling it. I experienced this. When we're writing a narrative, it's you who's telling your own story and you're the main character. So like I said, it all needs to be in first person perspective. And for your reader, it should feel like they are coming along with you. They're holding your hand and they're walking through these experiences with you, not like they're being told it secondhand. So you want to make sure that use of first perspective helps you to build that relationship with the reader. Let's talk about setting here. We know that setting is the where and the when a story takes place. It's very important that a setting is clear, a setting is consistent, and especially with a personal narrative, you really want to have a consistent timeline. When we are telling a story from our past, it can be easy to lose ourselves in all of the different experiences and going from this moment to that moment as you remember it. But it's really important that we do stay consistent. We have a starting point and an ending point. We're not jumping around in time.
Your
and
1 hour, 40-minute timer.
Alexa, stop the timer. Sorry. There shouldn't be flashbacks.
40-minute timer stopped on bathroom.
Why was there 1 minute 40? Okay. A good personal narrative should be recent. Let's focus on things that have happened within the last 3 years. Okay. That allows us to really dig into an experience that has meaning in our life and may be relevant and is also fairly fresh. Okay. So while there may be wonderful personal narratives to tell about our childhood, let's skip those and let's really focus in on something more recent. Okay. We also, like I mentioned before, we really want to have that consistent timeline, and we want to limit that time frame. It can be very easy to take on way too large of a chunk of time to tell in a story, but we're not writing a novel, right? We are telling a personal narrative, which is, it's just going to be a few pages. So we want to make sure that it is focused. Let's keep that in about 48 consecutive hours. Okay, so this shouldn't span weeks and months and years. This should span just a few days. It may not span a few days. It may be an even shorter time than that. It may be an hour. So let's talk about plot here. This is what actually happens during the course of our story. There should be coherence and clarity in this sequence, including all of these areas. That means everything needs to make sense and be clear and unfold naturally. So visually, can the reader picture where they are in the story? You're going to do this with a really clear and concise setting, lots of visual details, lots of literary elements to enhance that. Chronological. Is there a clear sense of the passage of time, like we've mentioned before? Does it have a beginning time? Where is your beginning time? How do you get to the end? And how much time is passing in between? Make sure that that flows in a logical sense. And then thematically, what is the purpose in telling this story? And is that purpose obvious from beginning to end? Okay, so these three things are going to be our big focuses as we're working on our plot. Okay. Again, this is what is actually happening during the story. So there must be something that you want in this narrative. And that needs to be kind of the theme that we weave across. So is this something material? Is this a new car? Or is this something immaterial, like a job, a promotion, a nice date, a new friendship, confidence to take the first step? It doesn't have to be something tangible, but it's something that you personally and the character that you are writing, which is yourself, wants and is seeking. Okay? Plot has to have conflict. Nobody wants to read a story in which somebody wakes up, wants ice cream, gets ice cream, and goes to sleep, right? There's no depth to that. We need to have conflict that drives that plot. So what is in the way of what you want? And how is that impacting you? Conflict can be a person. It could be an act of nature. It could be fate. It could be a happenstance. It could be a storm. It could be anything. So just as that thing that we want could be tangible or intangible, that conflict can as well. And we need to have a lesson. There should be something that is learned or gained or achieved, a takeaway that you experienced that also the reader can learn from your experience. So this needs to be created by the conflict. If you don't have a lesson, you have an anecdote and not a narrative. Okay, so it's really important that we hit all of these elements. Okay, so let's talk about how to pick a good narrative topic. We're going to start by doing some pre-writing here. So some pre-writing steps. You can do this either as listing or free writing, meaning you could do bullet points or you could just sit down and kind of dump your thoughts onto paper, whichever strategy works more for you. I can't tell you kind of how your brain works. But come up with as many topics as possible. Don't judge them at this point. Just get them down on the paper. Let's think of at least 20 to 30 ideas. I mean, we are talking about the last 3 years. Surely there are 20 things that have happened that could be worth exploring. So jot all of these down. Just do a brain dump. Like I said, bullet points, or it could be more written out, whichever way you want. Once we've gotten all of that dumped out, all those ideas on paper, then we can start to be a little bit more critical. Let's go back and read through that list. We're going to ask ourselves some questions, and we're going to cross out things that don't work. So you need to be able to say yes to all of these questions for your topic to work. Is this story about me? If it's not about you, move on. Okay, you need to be the center of this narrative. This is a personal narrative. Does this story take place over less than 48 hours? Did this event happen within the last 3 years? Is there something that you want? Was there something preventing you from getting what you want? And did you learn a lesson? When you find a topic that you can say yes to all of these questions, then that's going to be something worth exploring and turning into this narrative. Okay? Round 2. So you've narrowed it down. We've gotten the ones that fit these yes questions. Now let's look into these questions. And you should be able to say no to all of these. Does my timeline skip around? No, it shouldn't. Are there big chunks of time missing in my timeline? We don't want that. That's going to be confusing to the reader. It needs to unfold chronologically and in a way that makes sense. Are there flashbacks? That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for one straight through event. Is this story primarily about someone else? Again, personal narrative. That means this is about you. Is any part of this story made up? This should be nonfiction. So if it is made up, then it's not the right thing to explore. Okay, once you've answered those questions, and you should be narrowing down your list to maybe your top 5 options with those questions. Okay, if none of them work, back to the drawing board, repeat the steps so you find something that does. If you do, choose from these 2 final criteria. Number 1, what is the most interesting and would be the most fun to write? I want you to enjoy this. This is a personal narrative. This is one of the areas that we get to have some creativity and some fun, so I want it to be something interesting to you. So what's going to be the most interesting and fun to you? And then also, what has the most detail? You'd be hard-pressed to choose a moment that you don't remember very well or doesn't have a whole lot of detail or depth to it. That's going to be very hard to write about. So those are the 2 things you should think when you're selecting your final question. Okay? So we're going to take these questions and these ideas and this intro to narratives, and we are going to use these to start our brainstorming and get our outline written this week. All right, so reach out to me with any questions or concerns. If you want to toss your ideas out at me, if you want me to look over your outline, I'm here and available. Just let me know. All right, thank you.